What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you with a bit of a twist, as this will be part one of a two-part series where we look at the zero wide receiver and zero running back strategies heading into the 2020 fantasy football season and see how valid they are, if at all. And you can see we will be using Fantasy Pros for this. This will be a 12-team full-point PPR setup, and we'll actually go ahead and do 3 different mocks at 3 different draft positions. Today, we're going to go ahead and focus in on the zero wide receiver strategy. This first mock will be with that 4th overall pick. Roster-wise, nothing too crazy. We're not going to have defenses. We're not going to have kickers. I want to focus in on those skill position players. So let's kick this thing off. And another quick reminder for all of you, if you're interested, go ahead and get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It's got everything you could possibly want at a great value. Also, check out our all new and updated website at alldaypigskin.com for some exclusive content. All the details in the description. But let's get into this draft because we are on the board. We're using the zero wide receiver strategy, which means we are hitting the running back position hard exclusively in the first maybe 4-5 rounds. We'll see how it goes. And I will break it down a little bit for you as we go round by round to see what way I would normally lean if we don't commit to one of these strategies, which is what I usually tell people to do. Be flexible, go best player available. Now, for what it's worth, the zero wide receiver strategy, it's based on going running back heavy, which is normally what I do and what a lot of people do in the first portion of their draft. So this might actually be somewhat similar to what our actual roster might look like on draft day. But getting into it, we're going to go Ezekiel Elliott here. He is by far my next best available running back. I would actually take him 3rd overall ahead of an Alvin Kamara. So I'm happy that we get him at number 4. Let's see what we can do in the 2nd round. What players at the running back position are available to us. I would have loved it if a Kenyon Drake, if an Austin Eckler, if a Josh Jacobs fell to us. But man, that was not the case. There was a serious run on running backs before this. So we have to go ahead and go next best player available at the running back position. And that is the tough part when you commit to this strategy, because you're essentially saying, I'm going running back no matter what, but you're probably, ignoring other best available positions like the wide receiver positions. You've got a Chris Godwin here. You've got a Mike Evans, a tight end. You've got a George Kittle. So just something to point out here. But like I said, we're going running back. And the question is, who do you have ranked higher at this point in time? Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Chris Carson. I'm going to go with Todd Gurley here. I like his upside in that Atlanta offense. I believe the offensive line will improve, getting some healthy starters back, and Gurley on a 1-year prove-it deal. I like the upside there. He'll be involved in the passing attack as well. So we're going to go ahead and add him to our roster. And let's see what we have got available to us in that 3rd round at the running back position. I'm going to go here with a guy in Leonard Fournette. I think this is probably his last year in Jacksonville, and he will have a high pass catching ceiling. Probably won't have 76 receptions like last year, but 50 receptions I don't think is out of the realm of the possibility. So we're going Leonard Fournette here in that 3rd round. Let's see what we go ahead and land in the 4th round. See if we can get some good value at the running back position. And just so we can go ahead and keep our roster in mind, let's bring it up here. We've got Zeke, Gurley, Leonard Fournette. And I will say we could have gotten much better valued players than Gurley and Leonard Fournette after getting someone like Zeke in the 1st round. So immediately, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, man, this roster could be better right now. I will add a value pick here in my eyes in James Conner. I'm happy he got back to us. I like his upside in Pittsburgh on that offensive line. And I believe he's going to go ahead and have that workhorse type of role. Let's go now, though, kind of switching gears to the wide receiver position. We hit the running back position hard in the first 4 rounds. Now I want to go ahead and address the wide receiver position. And anytime you commit to a strategy like this after you have ignored one position, you better believe for the next 3-4 rounds, you're going to end up with a lot of wide receivers, getting some depth, hoping some of those guys hit. And at this point in time, the highest ranked wide receiver on my list is Devontae Parker. So let's go ahead and draft him here and see what happens afterwards. Now, I am happy that someone like a Julian Edelman, as you can see here, is available for us. He will be my next selection. because I like his PPR upside. Cam Newton in there really boosts his value in my eyes. So let's go ahead and not waste any time, add him to our roster. And again, continuing this trend, I want to continue looking at the wide receiver position. I'll bring up some tight ends to see if there's anybody that I really like that's fallen to us, but that's not really the case here. Quarterback, I can continue to wait on. I've waited this long, so I'm not too worried. Let's go ahead and add another wide receiver. And I've mentioned to you guys before how much I like Brandon Cooks as the potential #1 wide receiver in Houston. I'm going to go ahead and add him here. He ends up on our bench. So now to really round out this roster so we can get that roster grade, we can look at tight end, we can look at quarterback. We'll obviously have to go ahead and add 2 more wide receiver options. But since, let's go ahead and look at that cheat sheet, the big board, in terms of next best available wide receivers, tight ends, yada, yada, for comparison's sake, I'm going to start looking at value here. And I do think a good value is someone like a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady. So let's go ahead and make a selection there at the quarterback position. Who do you like more so, Brees or Tom Brady? I like the weapons Tom Brady has a little bit more so than Drew Brees, so I'm going with him here. He's going to be our starting quarterback. Then let's go ahead and take a look at tight end and some more wide receivers. So tight end, slim pickings, guys like Austin Hooper, TJ Hawkinson. Wide receiver, we get to, again, Sterling Shepard, John Brown, Anthony Miller. There are a couple names here that I want to go ahead and highlight. So let's go ahead and scroll down at the wide receiver position and look at someone like an Emmanuel Sanders in that New Orleans offense. I like his upside. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, also not bad picks. I'm going to go ahead and add Emmanuel Sanders here. Opposite Michael Thomas, I do think he will have some good opportunities. So really just wrapping this up here, let's go ahead and add a tight end and call this a day, and then one more position. So at this point in time, the tight end that I would like to go ahead and land is a Jack Doyle. Let's see if he is still available. I think he's going to have a really nice season with Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis, one of those veteran tight ends. So adding him here, and then one last pick we have got to go. Now, it would have been nice to go ahead and land someone like a Tony Pollard to handcuff Ezekiel Elliott with, but I really wanted to hit the wide receiver position like I mentioned before. I'm going to go ahead and add actually one more wide receiver here for safety's sake, and that will be a guy in, let's see here, looking at the best available wide receiver, Sterling Shepard. John Brown is someone that I still like, even with the addition of Stephon Diggs. I think they can complement each other nicely. So I will go ahead and add John Brown to our final roster. Now let's go ahead and see our final draft grade here. It's a C. Yeah, I didn't think it would be that high. I don't like how pretty much anything after that first round shaped up. Going Todd Gurley, then going Leonard Fournette. Honestly, I think both those picks were reaches. I would have gone elsewhere if we weren't employing the 0 wide receiver strategy. But it's all right. This is a good, piece of experimentation and a good example to see from one perspective why going this way it could backfire. And if you are employing this type of strategy, why maybe you don't want one of those initial first 1 through 4 type of selections, because in that second and third round, you might be reaching for a running back. So let's go ahead and switch gears and pick in our next mock draft, where we have got, I believe, the 7th overall selection. And like I told you guys here, we are sticking to the 0 wide receiver strategy. We're going running back, and the running back I have ranked highest here is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That is still available. So let's go ahead and add him to our roster. Pretty much doing this all over again and seeing what happens, evaluating where we get the best available roster. So it's our turn again, and we'll go ahead and speed this thing up a little bit so that, this isn't a 1-hour video or something like that. But we're going running back again here. That's no secret. And the guy that I have ranked highest at this point is Josh Jacobs. So we'll go ahead and add him to our roster. That's a pick that I really like. I think that's good value pick. I'm I'm a lot more excited about this pick in the second round than I was Todd Gurley in our previous mock draft. So I like the way that this is going. And again, continuing the trend on running backs, we're going to go ahead and add Chris Carson here. I like his upside. He gets crazy volume, also has some nice involvement in the passing attack. I'm not all that worried about Penny, who's going to start the year on the PUP list, not all that worried about Carlos Hyde. So we are adding Chris Carson as well. And for what it's worth, you'll probably see that our roster here might or might not be ranked all that high, because once we continue to add running backs, even though we've got our 2 running back slots and our flex filled out at the bench spot, how much value does that actually bring, as opposed to going maybe a Calvin Ridley here? Just pointing that out as an example. So keep that in mind. I don't think the grades here are the end all be all. Go ahead, use a little bit of common sense and, grade it on your own. But we're going James Conner here. So again, compared to getting James Conner in the 4th round, getting similar value to him here when we are picking 7th overall. So I think this roster right now looks a lot better with our first 4 selections at the running back position than the previous roster did. So I'm happy from that perspective. Let's go ahead now and look at the next best group of wide receivers. And this is where it gets a little bit problematic, because you can see, well, if we had a pick just a couple of selections earlier, we could have gotten a guy like a Devontae Parker or a T.Y. Hilton, guys that we have ranked a little bit higher than some of these remaining players. But, that's what happens, again, when you go with a strategy that's as demanding as either 0 wide receiver or 0 running back. You're really going to have to work on getting yourself out of the handicap that you put yourself in, being behind the 8 ball, and getting some high upside players at the remaining position. So let's go ahead and add someone like a Julian Edelman here, potentially someone like an AJ Green. I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice on AJ Green. He's got that upside. If he can get that chemistry with Joe Burrow, I really like the potential for AJ Green. I'm gambling on seeing if Julian Edelman is available to us in this next round, and we get a little bit lucky that he is. I'm going to go ahead and grab him here. So you see we've got Julian Edelman on both rosters. I think that just shows you that that's an example of a good value pick. And that's why I'm targeting him, not only in our first mock draft, but in this one as well. The same holds true for someone like Brendan Cooks, someone like a Jamison Crowder. So keeping that in mind, quarterback, we could go someone like a Matt Ryan. But again, even though he's a player that I like right now, looking at the wide receiver position, addressing that is more important. Getting depth there is more important. So I'm continuing to get upside. Brendan Cooks, again, he's a very high upside player that I really like. So I like getting him at this point in time. Let's also add one more wide receiver potentially at this point, unless there's some really good quarterbacks left. But no, there's been a run on quarterbacks. So I'm going to actually go with Jamison Crowder here, who I mentioned previously. I think he's going to have a really nice ceiling in that offense with the New York Jets. They'll probably be playing from behind quite often. And as far as PPR guys on that roster, I really like Jamison Crowder. So we're going to go ahead and add him as well. So we only have a couple more selections to make: quarterback, tight end, and one final bench spot. So let's look at the quarterback situation. Let's look at the tight end situation. We've got Carson Wentz. We've got Stafford, Roethlisberger, Cam Newton. I'm thinking who we can go ahead and add here. The highest ranked quarterback at this point in time on my big board would be Carson Wentz. So I will add him here before he is selected in the next round. Let's go ahead and see what we can do after this at the tight end position. And, to have a little bit of differences here, I'm just going to go ahead and add another high upside tight end. I like a Mike Gesicki, potentially in Miami as well. So it's not just Jack Doyle, mock draft through mock draft. And then getting one final piece on the bench here. Let's see what we can go ahead and do. And this being a full point PPR format, I do believe someone like a Golden Tate has got some nice value. Same with the Sterling Shepard. You can go Jalen Reagor. You can go some of the rookies available as well. You can go a Mecole Hardman, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the wide receiver 1 for the New York Giants. I do believe that that will be Sterling Shepard. I like his upside as well. If he stays healthy, I think this could be a good value pick. So let's go ahead and see what type of grade we get here. And again, we are getting a C pretty much mock draft after mock draft. I believe our last mock got the exact same grade. But I will say I like this roster more. If that one was a C, I think this is a C plus, B minus. I like our, quartet of running backs more so. Our wide receivers, I do like that we were able to get Julian Edelman, Brendan Cooks again. AJ Green, admittedly a risky selection, but if he hits, he could be a potential game changer for this offense. Carson Wentz, not too sexy, but I think he'll get the job done. Mike Gesicki, another high upside tight end. But I do like, for what it's worth, this roster more so. I'd probably give this a C plus grade. And finally, let's go ahead and go to our final mock draft, where we have got the 11th overall pick. And let's see what we have got available at the running back position. We've got guys like Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, and I actually have Austin Eckler ranked the highest here out of these remaining running backs. I think he has got top 6, top 7 type of potential, this being a full point PPR format. And then looking at our second round selection, we're going to be choosing between Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. I already kind of know who the other running backs are here that are left available, but just showing it for your guys' sake. Miles Sanders, Chubb, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. Miles Sanders, I like him more so in full point PPR formats than Josh Jacobs. If this was a standard format, I'd go Josh Jacobs, but here we're going with Sanders. I like his upside in terms of volume that he should get this year. So that's something that I'm excited about. So immediately, I think we got 2 very good PPR running backs here. Now, let's see what we can go ahead and do in these next couple of rounds. So again, we've got some familiar names here. We've got a Chris Carson, we've got a James Conner, we've got a Le'Veon Bell. And I'm going to go with Chris Carson here again in this third round. I think, again, it's a good value pick in the third round. Chris Carson, getting him there. And I'm going to go with one last running back. We've been going with James Conner, but let's go ahead and take a chance on someone like a Le'Veon Bell or a David Johnson. I think that Le'Veon Bell will get more pass catching opportunities. So in a full point PPR format, he's got a little bit of a higher floor than a David Johnson. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and add him to this roster and roll the dice on him. But now getting to this 5th round, which is where we have been making that switch to wide receiver, we will hold true to that so we can have consistency here. Let's look at the wide receivers available, and just as a heads up, this will probably be worse than before. So actually pretty similar to our previous mock draft. We've got Stephon Diggs, we've got Tyler Boyd, AJ Green. So let's actually go with another high upside wide receiver here. I'm going to go with a Marquise Brown. He's not a PPR type of wide receiver, but I do think he has a potential explosion in him. But since we don't have to wait that long in between our next selection, I'm actually going to pick him in the round after this. I'm going to go ahead and get AJ Green again. So let's add him first, and then hopefully Marquise Brown is available to us. And yep, we get a little bit lucky. He is. I'm going to go ahead and add him. And we are starting to form out this wide receiver roster. So again, at this point in the draft, you're going to see those familiar names, guys that we like at the wide receiver position as potential breakouts, as potential value picks. And right now, I think this is where we're going to see our first point of really dissension. I'm going to go tight end a little bit earlier than I have before. I think Evan Ingram here at this point is a very good value pick. I like his upside, and for that reason, we are landing him here. Let's see what we can also do at the quarterback situation. And unfortunately, Drew Brees just got selected. So again, let's pull up our roster to remind everyone what it looks like. We've got Eckler, we've got Miles Sanders, AJ Green, Marquise Brown, Evan Ingram, Chris Carson, and Le'Veon Bell on our bench. So the wide receiver position still needs some work. So let's see the names that are still available over there. Deontay Johnson, Sterling Shepard. I like the upside in Deontay Johnson. He is someone that I will take a chance on in that Pittsburgh offense, the wide receiver 2, opposite Juju Smith-Schuster with a healthy Big Ben. Let's roll the dice on Deontay Johnson and go ahead and add him as a potential bench piece that could potentially break through and be a starter, a flex type of guy on this team. Now, we can go ahead and potentially get a quarterback here, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go with Stafford. I like his upside as a passer more so because, he was on a great trajectory last year, getting close to 5,000 yards before he got hurt. While Aaron Rodgers, he's on an offense system-wise right now that's more so committed to the run. So even though I think Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback, I think Stafford could be in suit for a better fantasy season. Let's go ahead and add him. And then we've got 2 more selections to make. Now, as you can see, since going for running backs in the first 4 rounds, we really haven't added any running backs in either one of the 2 previous mock drafts we've done. That's also the case here. And that's primarily because, again, there's going to be a big drop off in production at the other positions, and there's still, especially wide receiver, just as important as running back almost, especially when there's that big of a drop off. So that's why we've kind of ignored the running back position afterwards. We've already built that depth, especially with this being a single flex type of league. So we've got our quarterback. We'll go ahead and add a couple bench spots. And I'm going to go ahead and go with a Sterling Shepard here. Again, someone that I like upside-wise. And then get one last pick in. And I can tell you guys who that selection will be. I like a rookie wide receiver here in a Justin Jefferson if he is still on the big board available to us. I think he's going to have a nice season opposite Adam Thielen. He's a nice slot type of wide receiver that I like, that I'm going to take the chance on. So that pretty much rounds out our final roster. Let's go ahead and see what happens. So yeah, we get a pretty similar grade, a 72 out of 100. This is actually our lowest ranked team. I believe all of our other rosters were ranked at 73 out of 100. So again, let's compare this to our previous 2 teams. We have got Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, and Le'Veon Bell at the running back positions. I like Eckler, I like Sanders, but they don't necessarily, either one of those, have the upside like a CEH or an Ezekiel Elliott. So I understand maybe the deduction in points from that perspective. Chris Carson has been a staple across all of our teams. Good value pick here. Le'Veon Bell, I could have gotten James Conner. I could have gotten David Johnson. At that point in time, we were going upside, kind of switching things up a little bit. Wide receiver, we took some chances. We took gambles here, and I do think that is reflected. I'm not as high on this wide receiver core as our previous one. AJ Green, again, a risky pick. Marquise Brown, a risky pick. We don't have that kind of balancing out factor like a Julian Edelman that we had in our second run through. So I understand the lower grade there. Evan Ingram, though, I think is a nice piece. I think he's got very nice upside. Obviously, we'd have some work cut out for us if he gets injured, but we can address that later on. I would say, as far as the grade goes, I think this team is probably a little bit worse than the team we put together in our first run through. And let's go ahead and just show you all of these teams again, one by one. This was team 1 with that 4th overall selection. Brady, Zeke, Gurley, Parker, Julian Edelman, Jack Doyle, Leonard Fournette, James Conner, Brendan Cooks, Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown. And even though Gurley and Leonard Fournette were a bit of a reach, I like the value on James Conner. So I was actually mistaken. We didn't have Chris Carson every single one of our teams. We did not have him here. I like our quarterback situation here. I like getting Devontae Parker and Julian Edelman, but getting Gurley and Leonard Fournette in the 2nd and 3rd round where we did, I think that was a bit of a reach. So that's kind of what's turning me off to this team with that 4th overall selection. And then here we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, James Conner. So I like our running backs here the most. AJ Green, Julian Edelman, then Brendan Cooks, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, Carson Wentz, Mike Gesicki. So the tight end position, not as strong. Quarterback position, probably not as strong either. But overall, at the positions that matter most, running back and wide receiver, I think we've got a better core here than any of our other rosters. And our final one here that we did with the 11th overall pick, we've got Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell. Wide receiver wise, like I said before, we've got some risks. And for that reason, this rightfully so should get that lowest grade. I think C minus is probably fair. And I think our best overall roster was this one here, probably closer to a C plus grade in my eyes. But let me know what you guys think. Did you agree, disagree? What did you think of each roster? And what are your thoughts on the zero wide receiver strategy? At what point would you go ahead and shift focus to starting to add wide receivers, pass catchers? So I think the takeaway here should be that, in theory, this strategy isn't all that bad because running backs are the most important position. But after the third round, heading into the fourth, fifth round, it gets to be a little bit too much. And the worst part about this is it sacrifices those value picks. That's why at the end of the day, when it comes to these types of strategies, I always point out, ideally, you should be flexible. You should go best player available. But nonetheless, I think this was a very good exercise in going ahead and seeing the different types of rosters that you can put together when you commit to this strategy at 3 different draft positions. Again, let us hear it in the comment section along with any other questions you guys might have. And a final reminder, go ahead and get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.